A Game of Catch by Richard Wilbur. Monk and Glennie were playing catch on the side of the lawn of the firehouse when Soch caught sight of them. They were good at it for seventh graders, as anyone could see right away. Monk, wearing a catcher's mitt, would lean easily sideways and back, with one leg lifted and his throwing hand almost down to the grass, and then lob the white ball straight up into the sunlight. Glennie would shield his eyes with his left hand, and just as the ball fell past him, snag it with a little dart of his glove. Then he would burn the ball straight toward Monk, and it would spank into the round mitt and sit, like a still-life apple on a plate, until Monk flipped it over into his right hand and, with a negligent flick of his hanging arm, gave Glennie a fast grounder. They were gone on and on like that, in a kind of slow-mannered, luxurious dance in the sun, their faces perfectly blank and entranced, when Glennie noticed Soch dawdling along the other side of the street and called hello to him. Soch crossed over and stood at the front edge of the lawn near an apple tree, watching. "Got your glove?" asked Glennie, after a time. Soch obviously hadn't. "You could give me some easy grounders," said Soch, "but don't burn 'em." "All right," Glennie said. He moved off a little, so the three of them formed a triangle, and they passed the ball around for about 5 minutes, Monk tossing easy grounders to Soch, Soch throwing to Glennie, and Glennie burning them into Monk. After a while, Monk began to throw them back to Glennie once or twice before he let Soch have his grounder, and finally Monk gave Soch a fast, bumpy grounder that hopped over his shoulder and went into the break on the other side of the street. "Not so hard," called Soch as he ran across to get it. "You shouldn't have had it," Monk shouted. It took Soch a little while to find the ball among the ferns and dead leaves, and when he saw it, he grabbed it and threw it toward Glennie. It struck the trunk of the apple tree, bouncing back at an angle, and rolled steadily and stupidly onto the cement apron in front of the firehouse, where one of the trucks was parked. Soch ran hard and stopped it just before it rolled under the truck, and this time he carried it back to its former position on the lawn and threw it carefully to Glennie. "I got an idea," said Glennie. "Why don't Monk and I catch for 5 minutes more, and then you can borrow one of our gloves?" "That's all right with me," said Monk. He socked his fist into his mitt, and Glennie burned in one in. "All right," Soch said, and went over and sat under the tree. Then in the shade he watched them resume their skillful play. They threw lazily fast or lazily slow, high, low, or wide, and always handsomely, their expressions serene, changeless, and forgetful. When Monk missed a low backhand catch, he walked idlantly after the ball, and hardly ever looking, flung its side arm for an imaginary put-out. After a good while of this, Soch said, "Isn't it 5 minutes yet?" "1 more minute to go," said Monk, with a fraction of a grin. Soch stood up and watched the ball slop back and forth for several minutes more, and then he turned and pulled himself up into the crotch of the tree. "Where are you going?" Monk asked. "Just up the tree," Soch said. "I guess he doesn't want to play catch," said Monk. Soch went up and up through the fat, light gray branches until he grew slender and bright and gave under him. He found a place where several supple branches were knit to make a dangerous chair, and sat there with his head coming out of the leaves into the sunlight. He could see the other 2 boys down below, the ball going back and forth between them as if they were bowling on the grass, and Glennie's crew-cut head looking like a sea urchin. "I found a wonderful seat up here," Soch said loudly, "if I don't fall out." Monk and Glennie didn't look up or comment, and so he began jouncing gently in his chair of branches and singing "Yo-ho, heave-ho" in an exaggerated way. "Do you know what, Monk?" he announced in a few moments. "I can make you 2 guys do anything I want. Catch that ball, Monk." "Now you catch it, Glennie." "I was going to catch it anyway," Monk suddenly said. "You're not making anybody do anything when they're already going to do it anyway." "I made you just say that. I made you say what you just said," Soch replied joyfully. "No, you didn't," said Monk, still throwing and catching, but now less serenely absorbed in the game. "That's what I wanted you to say," Soch said. The ball bounded off the rim of Monk's mitt and plowed into a gladius bed beside the firehouse. And Monk ran to get it while Soch jounced on his treetop and sang, "I wanted you to miss that. Anything you do is what I wanted you to do." "Let's quit for a minute," Glennie suggested. "We might as well until the peanut gallery shuts up," Monk said. They went over and sat cross-legged in the side of the tree. Soch looked up between his legs and saw them on the dim, spotty ground, saying nothing to no one. Glennie soon began abstractedly spinning his glove between his palms. Monk pulled his nose and stared out across the lawn. "I want you to mess around with your nose, Monk," said Soch, giggling. Monk withdrew his hand from his face. "Do that with your glove, Glennie," Soch persisted. "Monk, I want you to pull up hunks of grass and chew on it." Glennie looked up and saw a self-delighted, intense face staring down at him through the leaves. "Stop being a dope and come down and we'll catch for a few minutes," he said. Soch hesitated and then said, in a tentatively mocking voice, "That's what I wanted you to say." "All right then, nuts to you," said Glennie. "Why don't you keep quiet and stop bothering people?" Monk asked. "I made you say that," Soch replied softly. "Shut up," Monk said. "I made you say that, and I want you to be standing there looking sore. And I want you to climb up the tree. I'm making you do it." Monk was scrambling up through the branches, awkward in his haste and getting snagged on twigs. His face was furious and foolish, and he kept telling Soch to shut up, shut up, shut up, while the other's exuberant and panicky voice poured down upon his head. "Now you shut up, or you'll be sorry," Monk said, breathing hard as he reached up and threatened to shake the cradle of slight branches in which Soch was sitting. "I want," Soch screamed as he fell. 2 lower branches broke his rustling, crackling fall, but he landed on his back with a deep thud and lay still, with a strangled look on his face and his eyes clenched. Glennie knelt down and asked breathlessly, "Are you okay, Soch? Are you okay?" While Monk swung down through the leaves, crying that honestly he didn't even touch him. The crazy guy just let go. Soch doubled up and turned over on his right side, and now both of the other boys knelt beside him, pawing at his shoulder and begging to know how he was. Then Soch rolled away from them and sat partly up, still struggling to get his wind, but focusing a species of smile onto his face. "I'm sorry, Soch," Monk said. "I didn't mean to make you fall." Soch's voice came out weak and gravely in gasps. "I meant you to do it. You had to. You can't do anything unless I want you. I want you to." Glennie and Monk looked helplessly at him as he sat there, breathing a bit more easily and smiling fixedly with tears in his eyes. Then they picked up their gloves and the ball, walked over to the street, and went slowly away down the sidewalk. Monk punching his fist into the mitt, Glennie juggling the ball between the glove and hand. From under the apple tree, Soch still bent over a little for lack of breath, croaking after them in triumph and misery. "I want you to do whatever you're going to do for the whole rest of your life."